Buying a cheap plastic phone case from an overseas website in the summer of 2026 triggers a sudden €3 surcharge and a pop-up warning that a robot sold it to you.
Effective July 1, the EU applies a fixed €3 customs duty on consignments under €150. That single regulatory shift impacts 93% of e-commerce flows into the EU.
Hitting buy now on a bargain gadget suddenly feels like paying a cover charge just to get your mail. You expect the sticker price to be the final price, and now there is a toll booth attached to your shopping cart.
Millions of small packages flood European ports daily. The new fee functions as a blunt instrument to capture revenue from that massive volume of ultra-fast fashion and inexpensive electronics.
It's going to hit consumers instantly. And then August arrives.
August activates the EU AI Act transparency obligations. Online marketplaces must explicitly flag when you interact with an AI system. Digital storefronts will require mandatory disclaimers for automated chatbots, dynamic pricing algorithms, personalized recommendation engines, and inventory management bots.
A marketplace simply cannot slap a robot warning label on millions of micro-interactions without completely alienating the buyer. The logistics of tracking every single AI touchpoint across a massive retail site seem impossible to manage. You scroll past a pair of shoes, an algorithm shifts the price by 2 cents, and suddenly you get a pop-up alert breaking your concentration.
Retailers anticipate a reality where the human is no longer the primary shopper on their platforms. The transparency warnings exist because human shoppers are being replaced by AI agents doing the actual shopping.
Wait, really? The AI is doing the shopping?
AI agents actively compare prices, delivery dates, return terms, and carbon footprint estimates before a human even visits the site. Jürgen Leidecker, the CEO at Endshift, points out that we are watching a new selection layer emerge. He notes delivery offers must be easily comparable to achieve e-commerce success.
You tell your digital assistant to find the best deal on running shoes, and that software goes out to crawl hundreds of retailers simultaneously. Customers might select the brands, but the shopping journey is mediated by software running in the background.
Matthias Griedenhag, the chief product officer at Endshift, specifies that delivery and return terms must be machine-readable. Retailers need carrier events that map into one standardized tracking story. Presenting a flashy marketing banner offering free shipping means nothing to an autonomous agent scraping application programming interfaces for hard data points.
Making delivery terms machine-readable is like writing a resume exclusively to appease a keyword-scanning algorithm rather than a human hiring manager. You strip out all the persuasive marketing language and optimize entirely for a bot looking for specific data points. The entire global supply chain interface is being redesigned so software programs can negotiate with each other in milliseconds.
Lockers consolidate delivery routes for logistics providers, driving down the final mile transportation costs significantly. Consumers demand convenience, while carriers demand predictable drop-off locations.
European consumer habits are shifting alongside this technological change.
Based on DHL data, 35% of shoppers use lockers or parcel shops for delivery. 79% prefer returning items via a locker and parcel shop.
People check their tracking numbers compulsively. You buy something online, and tracking that package becomes a daily ritual. The post-purchase pages where you track your order are transforming into premium commercial inventory. Because you compulsively refresh those pages waiting for an update, sales offers placed there convert at a much higher rate, driving a massive.
IAB Europe forecasts European retail media spend hitting €31 billion by 2028. Taking advantage of that captive audience requires highly integrated tracking systems. Retailers monetize your anxiety about when a package will arrive by serving highly targeted advertisements on the exact screen you refuse to close.
Retailers scrambling for machine-readable data and mandatory AI disclaimers represent just the front lines of this massive shift. The force driving this panic is the broader EU AI Act, moving from abstract legislation to strict implementation. Companies are tearing down their existing digital infrastructure to comply with rules that carry astronomical financial penalties.
The primary target in all of this legislation is general-purpose AI, or GPAI. The AI Act defines GPAI as systems usable across multiple tasks and contexts. That includes natural language processing, content generation, data analysis, and predictive modeling.
A system built to perform one narrow task falls under different regulatory scrutiny than a foundational model capable of writing software code, drafting legal contracts, summarizing medical research, and predicting market trends simultaneously. GPAI providers carry heavy burdens under this law.
They must draw up incredibly detailed technical documentation They have to maintain those records permanently and ensure transparency for all downstream deployers.
You are asking software companies to explicitly document the inner workings of systems that essentially teach themselves. A foundational model updates millions of parameters constantly, making static documentation almost impossible to achieve.
The law splits models into two tiers. Standard GPI models face baseline transparency requirements. Systemic risk models face severe obligations for continuous evaluation, aggressive risk mitigation, cybersecurity reporting, and incident tracking.
Systemic risk classification is triggered by specific criteria like scale, capability, deployment level, or raw computational thresholds. I have to push back on this definition of systemic risk. Trusting politicians to draw an arbitrary line in the sand regarding a technology that evolves daily invites disaster. The terminology feels incredibly subjective for a legal framework carrying massive financial penalties.
Regulators measure raw computational power to set these thresholds. The European Commission uses delegated acts and technical standards to adjust the target as the technology evolves.
Oh, wow. Delegated acts function like giving the referees the power to change the size of the goalpost during the match. Defining the definitive capability of a text generator versus a financial predictor requires relying on technical benchmarks that are actively being invented behind closed doors.
Evaluation and risk mitigation reporting targets high-capability deployment models with vast computational power.
We are looking at a massive divide in application. It is the difference between a local baker using an algorithm to predict croissant demand and a global financial model quietly deciding thousands of mortgage rates at once. The regulatory hammer swings down based on the perceived blast radius of the technology.
Defining systemic risk on paper requires an entirely new digital police force to enforce it across 27 different countries. The European AI Office sits within the European Commission to ensure coherent implementation and develop standardized benchmarks.
The AI office acts as a central coordinator, leaving the actual policing to individual countries.
Enforcement responsibility actually falls to national authorities within the member states.
Having 27 distinct national authorities attempting to harmonize their enforcement is comparable to 27 different referees trying to officiate the same football match simultaneously. Every country interprets the rules slightly differently, but they are all blowing the whistle on the same field. You could easily see a scenario where a German regulator bans a specific AI feature for being too risky, while a French regulator approves that exact same feature.
Navigating that fragmented enforcement landscape forces global tech companies to localize their software architecture at an unprecedented scale. Building a single product for the European market becomes legally perilous.
This entire framework must interact with existing EU digital policy behemoths. The General Data Protection Regulation already forces you to click through annoying cookie banners on every single website you visit. The Digital Services Act polices illegal content. The Digital Markets Act attempts to break up App Store monopolies. Adding the AI Act on top of those existing structures creates a compliance labyrinth.
Do non-binding UN resolutions hold any actual utility in a profit-driven tech sector? The OECD AI principles demand systems be safe throughout their life cycle. The UN's Global Digital Compact provides guidance on transparency and algorithmic accountability. Those international efforts are entirely non-binding guidance.
They don't have teeth.
The EU AI Act operates as legally binding law with severe enforcement mechanisms. Corporations routinely ignore international suggestions, but they pay attention when regulators threaten to fine them up to 7% of their global annual turnover.
The resulting bureaucracy sounds unmanageable for anyone outside of a massive corporation. The European Commission is currently holding consultations and workshops with industry actors, civil society organizations, technical experts, and legal scholars to figure out what these documentation standards actually look like in practice. They are trying to write the instruction manual for the technology while the technology is already operating in the wild.
The implementation timeline relies on a phased process. Provisions related to general-purpose AI models operationalize early.
Stakeholders get time to adapt to the regulatory requirements.
National authorities establish their enforcement mechanisms, hire technical auditors, set up incident reporting channels, and define penalty structures.
The scope of this is staggering. The documentation requirements demand that tech companies expose the inner workings of their algorithms to national regulators. You have to document the training data sources, verify copyright compliance across millions of scraped documents, track energy consumption metrics, and report adversarial testing results. We are watching the transition from legislative design to harsh regulatory practice in real time.
Tracing the progression from a €3 shipping fee to the massive bureaucratic machine governing global artificial intelligence illustrates the scale of this intervention. E-commerce platforms mandate machine-readable logistics data to appease AI shopping agents. Those very same AI agents trigger continent-wide regulatory panic over automated decision-making.
With the massive technical documentation, compliance costs, and systemic risk evaluations required by the EU AI Act, this legislation might accidentally permanently lock in the current giant tech monopolies. Only the biggest corporations can afford the armies of compliance lawyers required to navigate this framework, leaving startup competitors frozen out of the market entirely. Goodbye.